Hello everyone, it's Just Jeffrey joining you from the Paterson Museum for this episode of Historic New Jersey.
I think a fourth grader put it best when they walked in once. They said, this is kind of like history inside of history. Actually, the Paterson Museum is located in the former assembly or erecting shop of the Rogers Locomotive Works. Actually, in Paterson, they built over 10,000 steam locomotives between 1837 and about 1926, Rogers being the largest. We're right here in the first floor, so pretty much where you're standing, there would have been a locomotive sitting in some phase of production between about 1873 to about 1904, and once completed, it would have gone out the large bay doors. Actually, we have 12 giant doors that make up the whole south side of the building. Paterson's been two things over the years. It's been Cotton Town of the USA and, of course, known as BEST, the Silk City. That we were the largest employer. More than a quarter of the people of the population work somewhere in the silk. Whether you were building the machinery, not only were the machines that you see here in the museum used in the textile industry, but they were also manufactured here by Benjamin Eastwood, the Sip Machine Company, and then about another 300 concerns that would actually, run these machines. And we focus on the process. So right from whether you were sweeping the floor through the winding, warping, and to weaving. So this is everything you would find at a complete textile mill. Jacquard weaving started in Paterson about 1872. Really, the main difference between a jacquard loom and the Dobby loom, besides the sheer size of one, is that a jacquard loom has an independent harness. In other words, we can lift up any string we want in the long waist threads and create a special pattern that isn't limited to just simple geometric up and down. Basically, what you could do is you could weave a complete circle on this loom. So when you want something figurative like Mickey Mouse or George Washington or a floral arrangement, you need a jacquard loom. This is a jacquard figure hole card, and this tells you the pattern. This is actually one pass of the string, basically, before you get like your whole pattern. So if it takes, say we develop a pattern about a rose, and you need 1,000 pieces of string, you're going to have 1,000 of these cards. They put them in sequential order, lace them together, and they loop them, 1 to 1,000. And then it makes an endless roll, and the pattern will repeat itself. Now you can see these are pretty flimsy. Talk about the modern advances. They've eliminated jacquard cards and went to a laminated paper. But no difference. This one's a little smaller for a ribbon loom, but the principle is the same. But really what you should notice with these figure cards is that they're really based on the IBM punch card system. The modern day computer learned its lesson from jacquard weaving.
So for those of you who stopped down to the Little Falls Public Library in the month of January, you will have noticed our Wright Aeronautics exhibition that was installed by Jack and Heather from the Paterson Museum.
You're standing in front of Wright's largest and most powerful engine, the R-3350. Essentially, this is a B-29 bomber engine. Wright's Aeronautical Corporation was really the last major industry. When you really talk about Paterson's great industrial past, you're talking about silk, locomotives, and airplane engine production. The other two industries were here roughly about 100 years. Wright's Aeronautical were only here for about 26 years, from 1920 to 1946, but they were really here for the golden age of aviation. When every other day somebody's breaking an air endurance record, an altitude record, speed record, it was normally done with a Wright's engine. And they are a direct descendant of the Wright Brothers Corporation from 1903.
So this is one of the artifacts that we have in our Lenape display that we allow particularly the fourth graders to touch because this is pretty resilient, as you can imagine. This is a hand axe that the Lenape created, and we have several tools like this in our collection that have been recreated. So the stone tool portion is original, but the handle and the leather are a recreation, a modern recreation to show you how it would work. We have several hundred stone tools like this in our collection, some of which are on display at the museum. We're very special, or we feel very honored that here at the museum, our mission is the history of the city of Paterson, but we choose to extend that and define that as the land in which the city of Paterson is on so that we can talk about the Lenape. So the Lenape were lived in this part of the Passaic Valley. They lived throughout New Jersey, parts of New York, a little bit of Connecticut, Pennsylvania. So they were very widespread throughout our area.
This museum really has it all. From textiles to the Lenape tribe to trains, and we even have things for the maritime enthusiast.
Yes.
Could tell us about this.
So we at the Paterson Museum have not one but two submarines, and what we're looking at here is the Holland 1, which is the first modern submarine. And so John Holland, who lived in Paterson at the time that he invented this submarine, he is the first inventor to successfully put an engine into a submarine to power it. So that's what we mean when we say modern submarine. There were other submarines before this in our history, but they were all person powered, either pedaled by hand or by foot. So he's the first person who said, let's let diesel do the work for us. And so he tested this model, this submarine, this is the original, this is not a replica, right in the Passaic River, right above the Great Falls in 1878. So we are on the top of the Fenian Ram, or also known as the Holland 2, and this is the second prototype that John Philip Holland produced. And this was a little too big for the Passaic River. So he tested this one in the Hudson and the East River. But it ended up here in Paterson. In 1927, it came back to Paterson and was put on display in West Side Park. So we are one of many generations of people who have climbed on this. At one point, it was turned yellow for Yellow Submarine at least a couple times. And then in 1980, it came into this building before we were even in the museum and put on display here in the museum.
I want to thank Jack and Heather from the Paterson Museum for having us down here, and I want to thank all of you for joining us for this episode of Historic New Jersey from the Paterson Museum, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much, guys.